Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the August edition of the Holland FinTech Online Meetup. My name is Gabriele Pippo, as you can see on the screen, and I'm an account manager here at Holland FinTech, and I'll be your meetup host for today. If we can go to the next slide, I'll quickly take you through the agenda for today. Right now, we are, as you can imagine, in the welcome words from Holland FinTech. Then I will be leaving the word to our founder and CEO, Don Ginsel, for the traditional fintech market update. And then we will be, if we can go back to the agenda really quickly. Thank you. Then we will be going into the core of the event, and that is the company presentations we have lined up for you today. We will be starting with a pitch from W.UP. Followed by Bankish. Then we'll have a short break for the Fintech Monthly pub quiz, and then we'll dig right back into the company presentations with the pitch from Cryptorefills, and lastly, pitch by Fraudio. At the end of the event, we will be announcing the best company pitch, and in this moment, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you that you'll be in charge of rating the company pitches, and you can do so by going on the right-hand side of the screen in the poll section close to the chat box. There, at the end of every presentation, a poll will appear where you'll be able to both provide a rating to the presentations as well as provide us with some feedback on the event in general. So the winning company will be the best company pitch as voted by you. And then finally, a few closing comments will be made on upcoming events. So without further ado, I suggest we move to the FinTech market update. If we can go to the next slide, and then I'd like to invite, he already is here. So that's great. Welcome on stage, Don. So I'll just go away and I'll leave the stage to you. Good luck.
Thanks, Gabriel. So I hope you can see my screen, full screen. Yeah, that seems to be okay. So good to see you all here. It's of course still a bit summertime, so we're with an intimate group, but I'm really happy to see you all here, and hopefully we'll be able to share some useful insights. I'm really looking forward to talk to you, and also of course to see the pitches today. Some really interesting companies, I think. So looking forward to that. Without further ado, I'll kick off the monthly wrap-up. If you have any feedback, Garby, please jump in with some sound, as I don't have visual of the hopping platform. So what I always do is basically go through the news that you might have read in our newsletter, which of course is made up of a news section, a funding section, research reports, and analysis and opinion. And that's also what you will find here in the presentation today. We just pick out a couple of topics that we think are worthwhile sharing with you, and hopefully spark the discussion on your end as well to figure out what this could actually mean for fintech in the larger sense, or for the financial services market in general. So we start with the news section. By the way, I'm talking about our global fintech update, the newsletter you can find in your mailbox every Friday afternoon. So last month, and we're talking about July, India and Nigeria basically followed a lot of other parties, like, for example, the UK, China, and other places where they are experimenting with central bank digital currencies, CDBCs. You see a lot of central banks picking up this trend. Of course, this was really sparked by Libra last year. That was launched by Facebook as an alternative payment means and a payment infrastructure. And I think this is where you still see that central banks are really looking forward to, come up with their own payment means to also keep the infrastructure in their control. Still a very interesting trend. We don't see a very strong uptake yet as to a digital currency by a national government or central bank that was launched into sort of general payment infrastructure. But it is likely, I think, that we will see more and more experiments over the coming year, and probably next year it might actually come into place. And I think China is probably one of the most favorable candidates to be first to do that, that it will actually be part of the payment infrastructure in general. Curious to see how that'll go, and whether it actually offers direct additional benefits, or whether that's actually something we'll see only in the next phase popping up. Well, further into crypto, MasterCard is launching a crypto startup program. It's interesting to see that also now we saw earlier that Visa also picked up on crypto, and now you see that MasterCard is looking into startups that could help them support their crypto efforts. Quite interesting, I think, for parties to partner up with a player like that. Then again, we also see parties that are actually still not confirming that they will actually work with Bitcoin payments, for example, and that's Amazon in this case. Even though you see now that increasingly, for example, countries in South America are opting to accept Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as general payment means or official payment means in the country, you see that now not everyone is happy to do so. And I think it all has to do with, especially for the global players, they're always active also in a jurisdiction where there's specifically anti-crypto legislation, which would make operation for them very hard, right? So I think, for example, think about the US, where there's increasing regulation coming for crypto. Now, for example, also there's again new crypto regulation in the new package by Biden that was approved last week. It was approved by Congress, but still needs to go to the House of Representatives. So it's not done yet, but in there it seems like a COVID recovery program. But underneath there are actually some lines about how crypto will be regulated. So this is quite well under the hood, and it might be, for example, make it hard for a party like Amazon that's based in the US to be really open to crypto in this case. Another interesting one, as I just said, Libra was also an effort by Facebook to basically go into payments, right? I think, and maybe just to repeat something I've said earlier, is that big tech firms like Google, Apple, Facebook, they're all keen on actually being part of the payment flow, because currently they're very strong in advertising, and that's where they make their money. But the point is, you don't know when to stop advertising because you never know when a transaction took place. So for now, if you, for example, search for a raincoat, you'll be bugged with a raincoat advertisement for the coming month because they don't have a clue whether you actually bought one or not. Not even to mention that they would actually know whether you need one or not. And so they're all trying to get to that data, which I think the primary one. Of course, Facebook already through WhatsApp Pay plays an important role, which is strong in, for example, Brazil. We also saw that they launched it in India, but now they actually come with a Facebook variety of that. And so I'm really curious how that is going to get an uptake, especially since a lot of consumers are still quite concerned about the way Facebook treats their personal data. So when it comes to payment, it's quite still could still be that a lot of consumers are actually not willing to share their payment data with Facebook, or indeed trust Facebook as a payment service provider. So interesting, I think, to keep on following that. Apple partners with Goldman Sachs, which I think is really interesting. They jump on the buy now, pay later bandwagon, right? So you probably heard about this, is that generally now all e-commerce platforms are offering a service to actually pay in installments, referred to generally as buy now, pay later, which could be a couple of installments or a longer term. And you see now that all kinds of initiatives are popping up to provide credit either in the e-commerce store or even at the payment terminal in a physical store, where you could actually opt for an option to pay in installments. Well, I think Apple is, of course, becoming increasingly with Apple Pay an important intermediary in the payment sphere, and they're now looking also to offer the credit facilities there in the buy now, pay later scene. It's highly criticized still because it's a kind of credit that's hard for people to track, right? So it's not easy to get into full overview and to really understand what kind of credit you're getting into if you buy a lot of things in installments. But at the same time, we also know that there's people that actually are able to afford, I don't know, a new washing machine, for example, which they wouldn't be able to pay at once, but are now able to buy because they can pay it in installments. So there's always ups and downsides, but definitely something to keep an eye out for. And it is quite likely that we will see also more regulations in this direction. So Google is reported to be diving into Japan's financial services market, which I think is really interesting. Google's, of course, already quite active. For example, in Europe, they have a strong partnership with Deutsche Bank, and they're trying to basically make a larger play, where on one end, they've got, of course, their infrastructure branch, which is Google Cloud, but you see that they're also really keen on actually integrating Google Pay, or basically being much more involved in the front-end delivery of financial services, creating this layer that they've basically built around the whole internet, but doesn't include financial services just yet, or at least not completely. And of course, they're very keen on doing that. And I think I'm really interested to also see how Japan, which has a really high digital uptake, is looking to work with a party like Google. It's a tough market to get into, I think, but generally Google has a really strong base there already. So this could be quite interesting what's going on. Then we've got Booking.com, renowned booking agency for travel. I think it's quite an interesting play. They've been growing very, very fast over the past years. They've already earlier started they've got their own payment department, and they've got their own payment license. But now they're actually expanding their financial services capacity, which I think is quite interesting. So you see a lot of online merchants, platforms, marketplaces that are somehow really relying on strong partnerships with service providers. Think about online payment platforms, for example, that actually facilitates payments for marketplaces, or think about Adyen, Molly, these kind of players that are actually making a real strong partner for e-commerce parties, but also physical services. But you see now that from time to time they're actually also really making an investment in building their own financial services department, and fintech, of course, is generally the way to do that. And then last on the news section, it's basically it's a new cybersecurity competence center, which is coming up. This is European news. So it's quite interesting to see, I think, what's coming up there. You see that I think cybersecurity has become quite a big topic, I think, over the past years. Financial crime in general, but cybersecurity plays, of course, an important role in that. All financial institutions now basically have a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer, and especially while over the past 2 years, everyone started to work digitally, remotely, when your colleagues are not around the corner, so you can actually check transactions, for example, makes the most organizations more vulnerable for cybersecurity threats. So it's really good, I think, that there's actually now a more coordination coming at this level. So definitely something, I think, to keep on following, and I think for everyone active in financial services should really establish a strong cybersecurity competence. That's it. We go to the funding. With regard to the investments over the past month, we always look first at the global level, then European, and then we look at some Dutch deals. So here we see that the largest were Generate Capital, FTX Exchange, Insight Software, Revolut, and iCapital Network. The largest round was 1.7 billion in growth equity, so really venture anymore, but really a really huge deal. And the FTX exchange is quite interesting, that so much money is going into DeFi from venture capital. So over 760 million in Series B is a really serious deal. Insight Software is also really interesting. I think that's much more on the B2B side, where I think a lot of potential still lies, right? So I think a lot of B2C solutions have been basically hitting the newspapers mostly, but B2B is generally where there's a lot going on at the moment. And we've got Revolut, which we will see also in the European leagues, massive round again that they raised. So it's quite a serious amount of funding that they got in, and they were already pretty far ahead of the competition, I would say, with regard to their rollout and offering. So they really seem to be one of the winners in the neobank, challenger bank atmosphere. Then looking at Europe, there we see Revolut again. We also see some other deals, which is LMAX Exchange, Lunar Way, Bank, Dutch deal that we'll see also in a minute, and Solaris Bank, the German basically banking service provider. Also quite an interesting league, I would say. Wealth management we see here popping up for the first time besides the banking set. I think wealth management is also quite important now, as we see that especially investing becomes much more something for the younger generations to do instead of just the old ones. We see a lot of parties that are actually playing into this, and one of the big roles to play there is actually the neo brokers, right? So I think we've got quite some players in Europe that are actually becoming quite big there, and we see now also that a lot of serious money keeps on flowing in that direction. And for the Dutch ones, two very nice deals, I would say. So Bank, who was actually self-funded up until now by its founder Ali Nicknam, he again invested a round of money in the first Series A. I think it was a record Series A of 193 million euros with a very nice valuation. So they basically knocked down into the unicorn atmosphere. And I'm really looking forward to see how they will further grow in their European expansion. Another very nice deal is Frizz. It's an insurtech service provider. Doing some really in the B2B space, enabling insurance providers to completely overhaul their systems. So I think I think they're doing a great job. So it's really nice that they actually got this funding round now of over 55 million euros. Really well done, I would say. So definitely worthwhile sharing these. If we look into funding, then here I think you see the overview, right? So 1.5 in banking, 376 into wealth management, 263 into payments, and the rest of almost 180 million went into mortgage and lending business. If you want to get the full overview and more insights into the whole lending landscape, the investment landscape, please check out the link. I think if you go to our website, you'll find it soon enough in our insights section, where we create every month an overview of the most important statistics about the investments in fintech. Well, I said after news and investments, we always have a look at the research side. CB Insights is an important provider of a lot of insights into venture capital investments, into the fintech space. An interesting one here is I think that you'll see that virtual card transactions become really important. That's, of course, what you will see indeed if the cards are actually not there physically, but they are, like, for example, with Google Pay or Apple Pay, they're actually stored on your phone. So it's a virtual card. You see that that's really on the rise over the past years, especially, of course, also driven by COVID, where people really didn't want to touch. Because generally, if you use a virtual card, you actually don't have to plug it into something, so you don't have to touch anything per se, and can work remotely. So that's I think quite secure, also from a contamination perspective. So interesting trend there, I think. The other one I think is a trend that we talked about a lot here as well is the SPAC crazy, right? So the special purpose acquisition company is basically it's an empty shell that gets listed on the stock exchange, and then goes to search with a bag of money that they raised from the investors. They start to look for targets to acquire, and when they acquire a company, that company immediately becomes listed. And in that process, it's cheaper and somewhat faster than generally going for an IPO directly. And that's why it's become quite popular also in the US, but for example, also in Amsterdam, we see quite a lot of SPACs listing at the stock exchange. I think it's a really interesting trend. There's some debate about whether this carte blanche that the investors that basically set up this shell and list it, whether that's actually regulated well enough. I think in Europe it's less of a problem because we mostly they target professional investors. For example, in the US, you see that they also target retail investors. And of course, then you could really argue whether retail investors are able to judge properly whether this is a real genuine investment opportunity or whether they are going to be spoofed rather than SPAC'd. We saw, however, that after the really big craze in Q1 this year, that we saw a calm down in Q2. I'm not really sure why that is. It might have to do with the fact that in the US they're basically researching now whether this is actually a good way to raise funding, especially from retail investors. But I don't think it will actually see that it's over at the moment, especially I think in Europe. A lot of stock exchanges are keen on bringing in more SPACs. And also there, I don't see that there's now anything in the way at the moment. So my guess would be that we will see the numbers go up again after the summer. Then, to wrap it up, from our analysis and opinions that we've shared in our newsletter, there's, of course, a lot of information coming by, which I'm not able to share with you all together. So I would definitely recommend you to read it all. But in any case, I thought that these quotes were nice to share, which is all about sort of the reinsurance market, of the insurance market, how that's evolving. I think quite interesting to see how that's evolving. And Alex Johnson, I think, gives quite an interesting perspective of that. And of course, we've heard a lot from Christine Lagarde, as the president of the European Central Bank, who's really looking into making always a big impact when she speaks and basically gives direction towards financial markets. I really hope you enjoyed the oversight. Always happy to take any questions afterwards. Please find me on LinkedIn. Of course, any members of ours can easily reach us, can reach me directly. I hope you found it informative. Please check out the newsletters, and I'll see you later for the Kahoot quiz.
Thanks, Don. Good that you mentioned the pub quiz, because one small tip: if you listened carefully to what Don said, you'll have quite an advantage during the pub quiz. I'll leave it at that. With that being said, I think it's time to move into the pitches for today. The first pitch of today will be given by W.UP. At W.UP, they help unlock the power of real-time data to understand and serve their customers better. To tell you more about it, we have the head of sales at W.UP, Tamas Brown. So Tamas, whenever you're ready, I can see you already have your screen shared, so I'll leave the stage to you.
Thank you very much, indeed, and good afternoon, everyone, on this lovely Friday afternoon. So I work for a company called W.UP, who is a fintech company with a mission to turn data into better banking. Briefly, we looked at throughout the years, I myself have worked in digital banking for a number of years, and digital banking solutions and platforms, most of them are still very much transactional. So what we intend to do, what we aim to do, is to transform digital banking experiences to be more personalized, to unleash the power of real-time data, to detect those moments in customers' lives where the banks would need to step in or pay attention or just advise. So there's quite a lot in the data management, banking-specific data management, which we built into our platform, data enrichment, and so on. But of course, personal finance management, financial health algorithms are also part of our product portfolio, as well as holistic banking digital experiences to help customers save more, or just in general to be more aware of their spending. Couple of use cases, how we helped our existing clients throughout Europe and the Middle East, and we're going heavily into APAC and other regions as well. Starting from the left, it was one of our clients in Europe where we helped them understand data, transactional data mostly, both their own as well as using open banking, of course, third-party transactional data, and using a smart algorithm uncover opportunities where a particular client might actually be benefiting from refinancing an existing loan, either from the same bank or from a third-party competitor bank. So when we did this with the bank, and then we sort of in real time uncovered these opportunities in clients' transaction history, and presented this offer contextually with a meaningful offer to consolidate loans, we have seen over 100% uplift in taking out such consolidation loans. In the second example, we have again worked with a similar bank where we looked at transactional data and using again a real-time algorithm identified such outlier payments, unusually high. You go to the App Store or you go to the Apple Store and buy a MacBook over €1,000, and if your transaction history and other usual spending indicates that this is a big financial burden on your finances, on your cash flow going forward, then this might make sense to, and we talked about buy now, pay later just 10 minutes ago, for the bank to counter that and say, actually, with a credit card, you can split this, or you can spread this expense over 6 months, over 3 months, or whatever is convenient for you. So again, it's when you do this contextually in real time, tied to a transaction which is meaningful for the customer, then we have seen a 37% uplift of taking such an offer compared again to previous traditional CRM type of campaigns. And you can use this information, the enrichment information we provide, in a number of other ways to increase NPS scores, loyalty, to advise customers on loyalty offers, to be more on the topic, to actually provide relevant offers when it comes to loyalty, rather than just spamming them with completely unrelated or irrelevant offers. The other thing which worked quite well, and you can look at the health industry or health applications as well, to provide monthly snapshots of customers to say that, well, this is how you spent your money. This is how much your carbon emission was, for example, after every month. So this was appreciated by customers. Over 89% said that, yeah, this is very useful, very informative. Similarly to what Strava would do when you finish your month and how much you run or cycled or swam or whatever your sport is. Now, we also have come up with one more thing, which is something we call money stories. It is, the stories itself resembles to Instagram stories. It's a kind of engagement channel where information about customers' finances can be delivered in small snapshots. Yes, we're focusing on attention span here, so bear with me for another minute, where we try to explain customers important financial stories or important financial occurrence events in 15, 20, 30 seconds. Again, drawing attention to a double charge maybe, or just a general overview of how they spend their money or what budgets they need to increase or decrease. All this is very simply integrated. It's a story bar similar to Instagram. No, as a bank, they wouldn't need to completely reconfigure or reimagine how their banking journeys, customer journeys are working in a mobile app. Insert a story bar and it's all done. So this is pretty much it. Just a couple of words about the company. We have been in the market for about 15 years or so, not in the form of W.UP, but previously the core team worked together in digital banking. We now have 150 employees, 25 banking customers, which are spanning across Europe, as I said, and recently APAC as well, quite a lot. I'm based here in London, head of sales of the company. Also, Budapest is our head office and our main development center, R&D office, and this is where our data scientists sit as well. So thank you very much. I think if I know the agenda well, we're opening up for questions, if you have any.
Thanks, Tamas. Thanks for the presentation. Indeed, now we'll head into the presentation, into the Q&A. Just one note before we go into the Q&A, I'd like to remind the audience to rate Tamas's pitch. And you can do so in the post section on the right-hand side of the screen next to the chat box. So please submit your ratings and any questions you might have. So let me check if there are any questions. So we have one question from Don. Don is asking, what are the best content or services for maximum customer interactions with a banking app?
So the way I would answer that, Don, is that we don't want to figure this out. We want to leave this to algorithms. If you think of the traditional relationship between a branch manager and the customer who walks into the branch, that branch manager used to know, of course, quite a lot about the customer, or at least they would have a file on that. So this doesn't exist anymore, right? So customers don't walk into the branches, and branch managers certainly don't know their customers that well anymore, unless you live in a small village somewhere here in the UK. So what we do is that we leave this to algorithms to figure out what is the content, what is the event the customer would need to pay attention to. And that interaction is what is actually shown to the customer, depending on how you spend your money, depending on actually what kind of transactions we can discover. Have you inherited money? Is your tax payments coming up? And so on and so on. Are you planning a holiday, which you normally do every year? And then this holiday is coming up again. Do you have enough savings? We can see on open banking data or in your banking data. So it is down to smart algorithms to discover these events.
Okay. Yeah, that's clear. That's a great answer. So thanks for that. I see that in the meantime, we have another question from the audience, from Raymond. And Raymond is asking if you considered expanding the offering to insurance, as it seems very banking focused.
Indeed, the insurance is very much in the pipeline. So I think maybe I want to mention that Our clients are mainly banks at the moment, but we also work with financial institutions in general. So insurance companies are on the agenda, I would say. Indeed, a lot of these events you can discover. So we have, for example, data enrichment in the context of car profile, how people use their cars, because the blueprint or the footprint of all this is there in transactional data. Your insurance payments, your petrol station transactions, how frequent, how large they are, and so on and so on and so on. So you can actually get to know a lot about a customer's car habits from transactional data, and that is useful information for insurance companies as well. So indeed, this is definitely on the roadmap of the company.
All right, well, that's good to hear. And yeah, so we have one more question from Willem from the audience. He's mentioning that offering a challenger loan offer is of interest. So how do you select the challenger or competitor?
So basically, the transactional data we mine has certain transactional fields, and we mine the description of the transaction as well. Naturally, also, we'll identify brands, merchants, and so on. And in some cases, these brands are, of course, banks where we see competitor loan payments are going out. So again, we can identify these competitor loans and the type of the loans from the transactional data. And that is what can be then used as context to offer loans, consolidation loans to customers. If I understood the question, Willem, is that what you were asking? Yes, a kind of lead generation, exactly. So again, the algorithm is smart enough to discover whether it actually makes sense for you to go and think about loan consolidation. So again, it depends on markets as well. So we have to fine tune these algorithms to certain markets. But I think we've done this in one of the Eastern European countries, where we compiled a list of banking or actually loan providers, which sometimes are not banks. And this list is then further enriched with competitors' loan offerings, which are typically publicly available informations on the website.
All right. So I see there is no more questions for the audience. So before we close off the Q&A, is there anything else you'd like to add to conclude?
Well, I think this is we see this as a hot topic, personalization in general, and again, spicing this up or marrying this up with digital banking functionalities, we believe will bring a sort of digital experience to customers, which is transformative in the industry.
All right, sounds great. Then I'd like to thank you very much for your contribution, Tamas, and I'd like to ask you to stick around till the end, so to find out whether you're gonna be winning or not.
Looking forward to hearing the other pitches. Thank you, Gabriel.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah. So moving on to the next pitch of today. Right now on the slide, you can see that, sorry for the confusion, but you can see the question, the feedback question that you'll be asking, and you can answer that by going in the post section, like exactly where you rated the pitch. So with that being said, let's move on to the second pitch of today. This pitch is from Bankish. At Bankish, they offer a tailored core banking software solution for professional credit providers. But to tell you more about it and in more detail, we have Ian Kalla. He's a customer experience officer at Bankish. So Ian, I see you're already here, so welcome on stage, and feel free to share your screen and take it away.
Brilliant, thank you, Gabriele. And much as so as what Gabriele just said, good afternoon, everyone. If you haven't heard of Bankish before, then essentially, to shorten it up, we're an Estonian fintech which believes that there is a better way of looking at core banking technology as a whole. And right as I'm sharing my screen with you as well, then I'd like to just share the thought process behind this. And when I was invited to speak at today's event, rather than just going for a company presentation as per such, I instantly had one other thing on my mind. And this has been a huge passion topic for someone like me, who is really fond of the fintech world revolutionizing financial services. And that topic is embedded finance. Now, with the likes of Klarna setting new revenue records quarter after quarter, and just last week, the $29 billion Afterpay deal was announced, there wouldn't be a single reason why we should not talk about embedded finance. And in fact, just a few months back, Capital Economics released an insight into what they see going on in the buy now, pay later markets in general, but it more rolls into the embedded financing sector. And there's quite a lot to grasp from this. So naturally, last year was an unprecedented one for us all, and its effects have been quite evident. Online retail sales rose nearly a third year after year. Credit card use dropped significantly in just 3 months from February 2020. However, the effects have not proven to be periodic. Rather, we see them as a push towards a new way of conduct that people prefer. Opting for credit, for example, at checkout is becoming increasingly more popular as it grants consumers the flexibility in control of their finances. Bearing in mind that customer expectations are in constant growth and that the checkout process is at large the bottleneck of retail and e-commerce, how could a merchant make it even easier to consume? And in this, the traditional payment methods are probably already in place for the checkout process, including a list of fields for credit card details, for example. It could even be the case that you have a cooperation with a credit brokerage, fintech, which has a network of lenders behind them already. The customer then has a variety of choice between the different funding options. Or maybe you want to already integrate to Klarna. In many ways, most of those are more relevant in B2C and not so much in B2B. Alternatively, there's a way you could do it on your own, and it's simpler than any of the above mentioned would like the merchant to actually think. And the beauty in that is that the customer is with the merchant every step of the way, and the merchant dictates what sort of credit products they can have. And that's the essence of embedded finance, in my complete opinion. It's like a loyalty program, but more meaningful for all of the parties, regardless if the offering is directed at consumers or businesses for that matter. Now, other than being the IT and software partner for professional credit providers mainly, we have recently seen a surge of interest in our solutions from companies that do not deal with credit as their main business. As we've been addressing this embedded finance gap in the market for literal years now, I'm really happy to see this interest, to be frank. Now, Bankish supplies the end-to-end technology for credit provision, software as a service methodology way. Much like we tell many of the credit institutions that they can forget about what they've heard about the big banks investing into their core ITs, being it years and millions in time and money, I would say replace it with weeks and thousands. Because our team has a team of professionals who takes care of the IT so that the customer that is actually using Bankish and the daily activity does not have to. Today and here on after, it's a full-blown IT service for that matter. Take, for example, big retail corporations in the embedded financing case. Be it fashion wear, groceries, or technology, it might make sense to embed, for example, overdraft credit services or hire purchase or split payment, what you would like to call the buy now, pay later, embedded with the product offering itself. Or alternatively, manufacturers of heavy machinery or solar panels or any sort of energetic sector can now up their game with an embedded financing option. After all, we've seen the vehicle production industry do it before already. Although a bit different from the digital transformation of already established credit institutions, the implementation process looks roughly the same in the context of embedded finance. So here's a few tips to bear in mind. First of all, preparation is the key to success. Make sure that everyone is on the same page, your team itself, the partner's team, on the same page about what we want to achieve. Bankish's team will be there every step of the way, so help us help you is essentially what I'm saying here. Second of all, make sure to differentiate between the vital, the very important, and the nice to have in both integrations as well as the process automation itself. And most importantly, the final point, do not let the exciting new things blur the focus. So whatever you see the likes of Klarna and Afterpay and everyone else doing, what is truly important to you in your case in the end is the customer. So Our team will make sure that the IT is checked so you don't have to, and you can focus on your customer itself. So as the time is running out for me, then I'd like to thank you everyone for listening. If you have any sort of comments or questions to me, please feel free to shoot now. Other than that, you can connect me on LinkedIn, send me an email, or contact via phone for all that matters. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for the presentation. I think it was really, really insightful. So thanks for that. So insightful that apparently right now there are no questions from the audience. So let me just ask you a question myself. And I was wondering, in your opinion, what are like key obstacles in the adoption of such solutions for companies that are not making credit their main focus, basically?
You can see that there is actually a lot of fear, and this is where that's coming from experience over the past, let's say, year or so. We've seen a lot of retail and e-commerce companies come to us, and some of them are really, really big. They have this idea of innovating, but oftentimes when they research it and come to us, then they at one point they get into a certain like a fear, which is a wholly let's say it's a reasonable fear, because they haven't been doing credit before. Most of them do not have the internal know-how in that sort of a sense. So that already comes in the decision-making process and how you evaluate your customers, the credit worthiness of theirs. This is something that only really comes with the background experience of it all. And due to that, many of them opt to go with the likes of Klarna or what I mentioned before, the sort of credit brokerage fintechs that have a lot of different credit providers behind them, is because it takes off the load of the risk from them, and essentially the monetary risk lies on the credit provider, be it Klarna or some financial institution themselves. But there is a lot to gain in itself as well, and until they find the balance in the gains and the risks that they would be looking forward to taking, then until then it's always going to be a break-off in that sense.
Okay, yeah, that makes completely sense. All right, yeah, thanks for the answer. In the meantime, we have received some questions from the audience. So Renske is asking, does this mean that Bankish offers a full banking as a service capabilities?
No, not necessarily. So banking as a service goes a bit further than ours. So we position ourselves as purely a technology provider. So we ourselves are not licensed in any sort of a way, so we make sure that that the credit provider can remain compliant. They have the technological capability to do so. You can break an analogy from fishing. So we, rather than giving you the fish, we give you the fishing rod and teach you how to fish. So in that case, the credit provision itself and the activities behind that, this is something that lies on our customers. Our customers are the ones who are being licensed and provide the credit.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for the answer. Before we move to the last question we have received from the audience, I'd like to remind the audience to rate Ian's speech, as well as provide a little bit of feedback in the poll section. But again, going back to the Q&A, Don had a question, and the question is, what steps do you believe we need to take to make sure that consumers are well aware about their financial choices and effects?
So that's a big one. I would say that in order to have the consumers be more financially, let's say, capable of addressing their own financial well-being as well, it's about the capability of many of the financial institutions themselves, and what sort of information, how do they help out their customers ultimately. So previously in the banking sector in general, it used to only be like the customer comes to you, they make some sort of a deposit, and then you deal with their money on behalf of them. You make some sort of interest off of it, and you give the little crumbs to the customer back as a deposit interest rate. But nowadays you can see that with all of those big fintechs and big neobanks coming into play, they're giving the customer a lot of new opportunities to look into their own finances. PSD2 solutions naturally gave you a whole another array of different sort of ways to look at your own finances and help them essentially manage their own life by granting them the information. So it's all about the information and how you can help your customers use it, I think. If that answers your question, I hope it does.
I hope so too. Otherwise, Don will let you know for sure. But yeah, with that being said, I think it's time to close off the Q&A as we're running a little bit out of time. So I'd like to thank you very much for your contribution, Ian. And
thank you, Gabriele.
I'll see you later for the announcement of the best company pitch.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So moving on to the next section of today's event, we have the longly awaited monthly pub quiz. So to kickstart this, I'd like to invite back Don Ginsel to the stage. So he'll take you through the pub quiz this time. All right. Good luck.
I think you got it right. Yes. So the code is visible in screen now. I'll put it also in the chat. So if you all go to kahoot.it, please don't use this tab, but please use a different tab or a different device. You can choose your own name. You can do that very commercial, funny. Please keep it decent. And you'll be able to join in just a minute. So we'll wait a little bit for everyone to join in. We've got Orange, H, Rimon already on board. So I'll give you a little bit of time. Decent. Yes. Well, thank you very much. That's really kind of you. We've got Eindhoven, Tensi, KH, Watermelon. Nice on a Friday afternoon. J. Pau. Summer. Yeah, we're all craving for it, I think. So let's see if everyone else is joining in. I'll wait just a little bit more for everyone to pick it up. It should be a lot of fun. So what we're going to do actually, to maybe for the ones that are new, I'm just going to ask you some questions about the developments in FinTech, most of which were actually part of the monthly overview that you saw earlier. And some of them you actually might only know if you read our newsletter. We, of course, must make it a little bit hard for someone to really be the winner. But maybe if you're just a good, if you're really following everything that's going on in FinTech, you should definitely know the answers. What's in any case good to know for all of you is that it's important that you keep the pace in, because you actually get rewarded for how fast you answer. So the faster you do it, the more points you get, and the bigger the chance is you end up on the stage. And I definitely also want to make it a bit more competitive by, in any case, telling you that the winner always gets a nice present from us sent through mail. Of course, normally when we do physical events, and we're actually very much looking forward to do that again after in the next edition in September, we can of course hand it to you personally, but now we'll actually do it all by mail. Well, I think we're almost at 20. Yes, there we are. So you can still join if you want, but I'll start the show very slowly. So if you still want to join, please do it right now. Then we'll get started. Please be careful that basically you don't get the full question in your screen. You will only get the color that associates with the question that you will see on the screen right here. MasterCard launched a new startup program for what type of services? Stablecoins, crypto, buy now, pay later, or data? I see the answers rolling in. This is definitely a good one to get everyone up to speed, I would think. Yes, here we go. Indeed, it was a program especially focused on startups in the crypto business. Most of you got that right. For the ones who didn't, don't worry. Everyone makes mistakes somewhere along the way, so you still got your chances on the main stage. Hope everyone's got their fingers ready and are completely up to speed. And we go to the next one. Here we can see the leaderboard, which you will see after each question, so you get a sense of how we're doing. There we go. 17 July marked a deadline for the EU member states to transpose Directive 4, open data and reuse of public info, big tech taxes, cross-border payments, or crypto payments. It's a bit of a tough one, I think. Still, most of you got it right. It's indeed one about open data and reuse of public info. It might seem only slightly related to the financial industry, but actually there's a lot of public information that's being used in credit scoring and other information services that relate to financial services. So it's a really important one to keep track of, actually. So all the EU member states now should have this completely implemented in their local law. But as usual, we always know that there's some laggards in this game, so it won't be done altogether, but definitely good to keep an eye out for how soon that will be implemented in each country. All right, what happens to the leaderboard? JPOW, Decent, and ThinkPay are on top of it now, but we've got some followers, and they'll also make a mistake, so give it your best shot. Facebook Pay is extending to reach outside the social media platform to do what? Are they going to do online banking, fintech, remittances, or third-party e-commerce sites? So where can you find Facebook Pay? Online banking, fintech, remittances, third-party e-commerce sites. Yes, well, most of you got that right. Indeed, they're really looking to facilitate e-commerce, as we saw earlier also in the monthly overview. What happened to the leaderboards? Decent again on top. So I think we still some movers up. So let's keep it going. MasterCard and Visa are picking a new partnership to drive a product for cross-border payments, cash payments, mobile payments, or biometric payments. This was in our newsletter. We didn't talk about this earlier today. But I think you might be able to guess this. Yes, most of you got this right. Very nice score of 10 in any case. Biometric payments. What happens to the... Oh, Decent is on a streak with 4 correct answers, doing very well. But we've got some runs up, so we're still aren't there yet. So keep it up. Goldman Sachs is supporting Apple with what kind of services? Buy now, pay later, cybersecurity, accelerated program, or a new capital raise? What is going on between the two of them? All right. Yes, most of you got that right. You've paid attention earlier, so that's very nice. It's indeed buy now, pay later services. We see some catchers up. Let's see how that will go in the next questions. Still 5 to go. Which Dutch online travel agency announced the creation of an internal fintech business? Travix, Expedia, Booking.com, or Trivago? This should not be so hard, I think. Let's see how it goes. Yes, indeed. Glad you've been paying attention. This was an easy one, but good for all of you to catch them up. And it doesn't change the leaderboard. So let's see now what happens in the next questions. Google is planning to move into which country? Nepal, China, India, or Japan? Seems like some people are in doubt. Answers are coming in kind of slowly, but I hope you're able to make it through. Indeed, we talked about that earlier today. They tend to move into Japan, especially with financial services. Ooh, we see a shakeup in the leaderboards. That's really interesting to see. So let's see. I think it's a fierce competition going on. So 3 more questions to go. So let's see what's happening. What is Russia pilot testing at the moment? It's a digital platform for what kind of digital currency? Is that for Bitcoin, euros, rubles, or Ethereum? All right. Oh, yeah, this is a tough one. So indeed, they are looking at launching a digital ruble. Of course, the ruble is actually going through quite a hefty ride in the regular forex markets, but they're also thinking to jump on the bandwagon of the central bank digital currencies to actually try to play along in the world there. Quite interesting to see what's going to happen there, but I'm not sure it's going to be their complete lifesaver for the ruble. But definitely an interesting project. And a tough question, apparently. Ooh, we get again a shake-up. Tiger now strongly in the lead. Let's see if that can still change in 2 more questions to go. How much investment did Dutch challenger bank Bank raise in their last round? Was it 53 million, 103, 153, or 193 million euros? They were, of course, in the list, and I think that you will probably notice. But it's always exciting to see what happens. Yes, it was indeed the biggest. 193 million euros were raised. Quite interesting. I think, by the way, it was quite an interesting deal because the money was actually also used to buy a service provider that's now integrated into Bank. So actually, it's not a complete cash disposal that's available now because the seller of that entity was actually also the investor. So it's an interesting, what we would call in Dutch, vestzak broekzak kind of deal. But I think it's really one that does show, I think, the potential that Bank has. And I think it's interesting to see where they go next. What happened here? Oh, again, a shake-up in the top. So it really hangs now on the last question to see who's going to win. I'm really curious how this will go. The Amsterdam FinTech Week, which of course you've all followed, had a very special speaker with Her Majesty Queen Maxima of the Netherlands in her capacity as the UN special advocate for inclusive finance. And what the theme of the day, what was it about? Was it about the EU view on digital finance? Was it about enablers, tech and capital markets? Was it about the financial life of consumers? Or was it about the financial life of SMEs? Oh, you're already there. And this was a tough question. But indeed, it was about the financial life of consumers. Her Majesty is especially concerned at the moment with topics like financial inclusion, where she mostly started off, but also now adding financial well-being to that equation. And I think playing an important role to actually advocate that and also the role that technology can play in that across the world. So we were really happy to have her as speaker. And we hope that you were able to see that just yet, or otherwise you could actually still check that on the website of Amsterdam FinTech Week if you want. And it's time for the leaderboard. The podium of today. Tamas made it to number 3. Well done. Dennis made it to number 2. And who's going to be the winner? Ramon, very nicely done. Ramon, please make a screenshot of your win and share it with us in a chat, and we're able to share your send you directly a nice gift to thank you for your participation and of course make it rewarding.
I'll see you later.
Well done. See you later.
I suggest we move forward to the next pitch of today. I see Massimiliano is already here with me. Massimiliano is the CEO and co-founder of Cryptorefills. And the Cryptorefills is a website and an Android app offering users in over 150 countries the possibilities to use their Bitcoin and crypto to make everyday purchases. But to tell you how they do it and more about it, we have Massimiliano here. So please feel free to kick off your presentation.
So thank you, Gabriele. Hi, everyone. Don, it was interesting to see that there was a lot of, quite some crypto and blockchain related news that you covered this week. So what we'll do today, Gabriele asked me to bring a use case, and what I'll be doing is I'll be presenting an innovation case where we brought actually technologies that are used in other sectors of blockchain, in DeFi and in Web3, and how we use them for real world payments, which is actually what we're doing. So just a bit of context on our business. What we do is we allow users, as Gabriel was saying, all over the world to top up their mobile credit and to buy gift cards with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And the way that we do this is basically it's your typical e-commerce or m-commerce shop, except for the fact that at the end of the checkout flow, we ask the user to transfer a certain amount of crypto funds from their wallet to an address that we give them. Then we're going to ping the blockchain to see that enough confirmations have actually happened and that we deem the transaction secure. And at that moment, we will we'll deliver the product to the end user. Now, we've been quite active in researching what the behaviors and the perceptions of users that are spending crypto for goods and services. That was the session that we did at the Amsterdam FinTech Week about a report. And one of the things that came out is that users are really interested in spending what the so-called stable coins. These are tokens that are pegged to the value usually of the dollar. And this is, of course, to avoid the volatility that you have on the main cryptocurrencies. But one of the big problems is that the transaction fees are very high. Not only are they high, but it also takes some time to process these on the blockchain. Just to give you an idea, the median transaction fees, and when I'm talking about fees, these are the amounts that the users are not paying to us, they're paying to the miners to process the blockchain transaction. So the median fees paid for ETH on the Ethereum network were about $3. When we talk about stable coins or tokens, these are ERC20 tokens, the cost is much higher. It can be $10, $20, and even $30 to complete a transaction. So this makes, of course, no sense to buy something with USDT and pay $20 of fees if you're then buying, I don't know, $20 worth of mobile credit or $20 worth of gift cards. Not only, but it also takes time. So based on the fees that are paid, if you don't pay enough, you're going to have to wait a few minutes, maybe 15, even 30 minutes, or you can even see the transactions refused. And this is probably a very bad, horrible user experience. And it also creates issues on the customer care. So what we did was we started looking out at the newest and interesting technologies that are out there in the blockchain space. And in April and May, we introduced two new technologies. The first one was Avalanche. The Avalanche platform, we introduced the C chain, which is an independent blockchain, super fast. It can arrive to 4,500 transactions per second. Compare that with the 30 transactions per second that you have on Ethereum. So it's very different. And transactions are confirmed always within 1 second. And the fees are quite low. So yesterday they were about 13 euro cents. Let's say that they're between 5 and 20 euro cents. The other one that we introduced was Polygon. So this is I'm always trying to explain this in an easy way. This is a blockchain. It's a layer 2. So it's a blockchain that is on top of the Ethereum blockchain. Transactions get settled first on this Polygon sidechain, and then they get grouped periodically and settled on the Ethereum mainnet. It was a complex task, not only from a technological integration point of view, but there was a lot of reasoning that we had to do around the user experience because we're doing something in an uncharted territory. So we don't have the Adyen or Molly interface that we can take inspiration from or something. So we're like really in a new space. It involved educating users, decoupling the concept of currency from the blockchain that was being used. So it was not an easy task, but it really yielded, I think, great results. In March, we were about 0.2% of all our transactions were on stable coins, and they were processed all on the Ethereum mainnet. And in June, when both solutions were live, our stablecoin transactions grew to 10% of the volume. The fees paid by our users were ridiculously low. So I mean, less than 1 cent for Polygon, less than 20 cents for Avalanche. Compare that with the $20 on average that they were paying before. So really good. All the transactions were processed within 5 seconds. But there was also very interesting that we started to acquire new users from new communities and also new segments, especially from, let's say, more fragile economies where users are buying smaller price point products. And so the fees have a very important impact. So it kind of opened up a new market for us. Lastly, it was also a great innovation because it allowed us to, let's say, reduce the cost that we have internally for consolidating the funds and moving them to the exchanges. Just a last point. If you're interested, we have made available, I think it's also on the Holland FinTech website, but also on our site at labs.cryptorefills.com. We have a lot of research about why users and how users are spending crypto for goods and services. So if that's something of interest, you can take it for free. It's tons of information, like 48 charts. And if you're interested, feel free to download your report.
All right. Thank you, Massimiliano. And indeed, I confirm that it is available. The report is also available on the Holland FinTech website. So I suggest you to have a look and download it. Before we move on to the Q&A, let me just remind the audience to rate Massimiliano's pitch. And you can do so, as usual, on the right-hand side of the screen in the polls section. With that being said, maybe to touch upon the report, and probably you have addressed this, I'm wondering what are major hurdles or major skepticisms from the consumer side in adopting such solutions?
Yes, so according to our report, and I'm going to just go on these. These are general and global. Then I outline them here according to the stable coins. But the transaction fees is the #1 issue. So it's something that you don't have only on stable coins, which was, of course, crazy. But also when the Bitcoin mempool is very high, we had users paying exorbitant amount of fees. So there are ways to, there are new technologies like Lightning for Bitcoin, which is starting to grow thanks to some next generation wallets that are easier to use. But fees is #1. Of course, the other one is the absence of stores. So before Don was talking about Amazon denying the fact that they would be accepting cryptocurrencies. But I mean, users are looking, and this is quite clear, many users are looking for stores and products that they can purchase with crypto. Of course, volatility, and the other one is the blockchain confirmations. So ordering something, if you order something online and then wait hours to know if your transaction is confirmed, is still an issue. And also there are ways. This was I just wanted to bring an experience that we made with something new just to avoid these problems. But there are these still kind of hurdles in the industry.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thanks for the answer. I think it's quite interesting to hear these insights. And our conversation sparked another question from the audience. And Tamas is actually asking, what's your forecast for mass adoption of crypto payments for such purchases?
So of course, I'm very optimistic. So on the long term, I think that it's going to be huge. What I see now, what we're seeing today is, of course, the first adopters are on once. I would say there are two groups. One is users in fragile economies that are hedging against inflation, or that for underbanked, undocumented, etc. So of course, they've got every reason to do that. They want to participate in the digital economy. They're freelancing, they're writing SEO, blog articles, etc. Get paid in crypto, and then need to be able to use it. So that's one big cluster. And the other one instead is blockchain and fintech enthusiasts in the more advanced markets.
Mhm.
And that is where most of the growth is today.
All right. Yeah, I'm afraid we don't have any more time for any more questions. So I'd like to thank you very much for your contribution, Massimiliano, for this event. And yeah, I'll see you soon. And I hope you'll stick around to find out who the winner of today's meetup will be.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabriele.
Talk to you later. All right, so now it's time to move into the last pitch of today. This pitch will be given by Fraudio. At Fraudio, they aim at decomplexifying and disrupting the payment and fraud detection and AML industries with their patented AI superbrain. But to tell you more about it and how they do it, we have Gadi Erel, VP of Sales at Fraudio. So Gadi, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say it's really great to be in this event and to present next to such innovative solutions. Fraudio, when we built our company, we really want to do things differently within this space that fights fraud and AML. And so we are we patented a technology that basically enables us to create a true first SaaS solution in this space, and with a big aim to democratize fraud and have it really be able to reach anybody, no matter how many transactions they process. Already today, we've gained some very interesting customers. We have billions of transactions in our AI, and we have over 50 million transactions processing every month into our, as I said before, a next generation patented technology that in essence enables us to add everybody's data into one major data pool, and with creating thousands of granular models, we're able to share models and also and basically gain everybody in the network everyone's knowledge without sharing actually sensitive data. This technology is giving us three main competitive advantages. The first one is it's very effective. We're able to stop fraud in real time, and we're able to limit and lower false positives exponentially. Secondly, is what we always aim to do is to truly provide a SaaS service in this space that is really more consultative. And in actuality, what that means is that we're able to connect with our customers within days. It's a true plug and protect solution with a monthly subscription, no integration fees, no other fees for that matter, which is really rare in this industry. And lastly, and this is a big pain point in the industry, is we're able to provide customers the ability to test our solution with historical data within days. So this test usually takes around a week. And that's really, nobody in the industry does anything remotely close to that. Now, I was told to prepare a business case, and there are many different kinds of payment frauds. What I want to talk about today is a trend that's really growing, which is a merchant-initiated fraud. In essence, fraudsters are becoming, there always have been actually finding new ways to create fraud. And now, instead of just targeting merchants, they are starting merchant accounts themselves, or muscling their way into merchants and processing stolen cards. And of course, the rest. Now, the name of the game here is not to find the fraudulent merchant, because eventually he will run away with the money. So you will know when somebody's fraudulent. But the name of the game is finding them fast. And we do this very well. This is a solution we've developed for Viva Wallet, which I'm assuming everybody here knows, a disruptor in the industry of acquiring and neobanking. And in essence, what we provide them is daily reports that enables them to take automated actions. What we look at this point is very complex algorithms that are constantly monitoring all transactions, all sequences of transactions, with different peer analysis and a lot of different complexities, and are able to provide Viva Wallet, in particularly, the ability to really loosen up on their onboarding. So to be as competitive as they can within the market. Sorry, as you can see, I'm being called a lot. To be competitive in the market, as you know, the acquiring market is very competitive in onboarding of new customers. Furthermore, another big benefit that we're giving them is the ability to mitigate their operations. Since they work with us, they don't need to scale their investigation teams, and they are experiencing extreme growth. And you can imagine that if you have an ability to take on more volume and enter new markets without needing to grow your operations, that's very valuable. For the acquiring game today, it's very much a race on getting the merchants and really getting your part of the pie. And this is really a game changer, especially for Viva, to in that race, and really helps them mitigate and confidently move forward into the future. This is the case I wanted to focus on. I wanted to make it short and sweet. If anybody has any questions about this, I'd be happy to talk about it, or any other fraud-related cases. So.
All right. Thank you, Gadi. Thank you for the great presentation. Before we move on to the Q&A, let me remind the audience one last time to rate your pitch. And they can do so by going in the right-hand side of the screen next to the poll section. As usual, nothing changed. And you'll be able to find also the opportunity to give us some feedback. I can see, I believe there's no questions up. The first one just came in. Don is asking, how do you explain your algorithms to parties like regulators?
Well, that's a good question. Well, with regulators, usually we would need to get into a lot more details. So this could be a very long conversation in that respect. But we do have, let's say, methods of that we're looking at. And in essence, if we're looking at bust out fraud in this case, we're looking not only on the transaction flow itself, we're also looking at sequences of transactions. And of course, we're looking at withdrawals of monies from merchants' accounts. Combined with KYC knowledge and other knowledge we have on the merchant and variable peer analysis, we basically developed this method. And it works incredibly well. Does that touch a little bit of what you're looking for, Don?
I think he'll let us know. He'll let us know in the chat. Yes, he confirmed.
Okay, great.
That answers the question. So thanks for that. I see there's no other questions. So maybe to look a little bit more future-oriented, could you elaborate a little bit on where do you see Fraudio, or what kind of plans you have for the coming period?
Of course. So we just finished the seed round of 3.3 million, which is very exciting. We did that right before the summer. And as of now, we're in a process of scaling and preparing for our Series A that most likely will start next year. We already are expanding to LATAM and about to look with our Series A to go into the Americas and Asia more aggressively. In the future, our aim is to actually provide a solution that's really nothing like it in the market, where let's say, a vendor will be able to go online and literally connect a true SaaS free trial, get the service, and then move forward. This is really where we're aiming to go to. And we do this in 3 main products today already, which is real-time transaction scoring, the merchant-initiated fraud, and AML monitoring. This is where we see the future. We're truly providing a SaaS solution. And the benefits, aside from easy onboarding, I think, is the diversity of data that either the big players tend to benefit with, or the players that are either starting or have really low volumes can benefit immediately from top tier results, as opposed to using rigid rules or otherwise. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the answer. And maybe before we close off the Q&A, is there anything else you'd like to add or communicate to the audience?
Well, no, I don't know if I am. I would. Yeah, we're here, of course. We're a growing startup. We have a lot of exciting things that are about to be announced. So if you follow us on LinkedIn, you will hear, of course, about all our future milestones. And I really hope to see you guys maybe in person one day in a meetup or in Money 2020, and continue being in this great world of fintech.
Sounds great. Thanks again for your contribution, Gadi. And now we'll move on to the announcement of the best company pitch of today. So if we can go to the next slide. So there you can also see that you can submit some more feedback for the event in general. I'm just receiving right now the communication from my colleagues about the winner for the August edition of the Holland FinTech Online Meetup, and the winner is W.UP. So Tamas, if you'd like to join me back on stage for a few winning words, you're more than welcome. There you go. I cannot hear you, Tamas.
I'm so sorry. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, very humble. Thank you, everyone who voted for us. I hope that means that we're doing something right.
Absolutely. Congratulations also from my side. And keep an eye out for a small surprise. We'll get in touch with you for the details, but we'll send you a little something as a reward for today's win.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Have a great weekend, Tamas.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, it's time to say a few closing comments around the upcoming events. So I'd like to all invite you to the next meetup happening on the 10th of September. And this time, it will be a hybrid event. So we'll actually get the chance of meeting in person. But in any case, if you are from a remote location, you'll also have the chance to dial in without being in Amsterdam. So I hope I'll see you all there. And with regards to our open events, the weekly Flash Friday, hosted by our CEO and founder, Don Ginsel, is a sort of a talk show where Don discusses with one representatives from our member base the most important developments of that week. And we'll be picking that back up in September. So tune in and keep yourself up to date with the most important fintech news. With that being said, I'd like to officially close the August edition of the monthly meetup. I'd like to thank all the participants for joining us in this Friday afternoon, and of course, a big shout out to all the speakers for making this event a great one. So thank you all, and I wish you all a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.